Hello, today I'm baking an artisanal style bread loaded with olives. They give the bread a delicious taste, and the inside is so soft, the outside chewy and also crisp. This is an unbelievably easy and delicious recipe. I hope you try it. So I start this the night before. The dough needs to ferment overnight or for around 12 to 14 hours. And just as I do for my regular artisanal loaf, it takes me about 5 minutes to gather the ingredients and mix them together. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's what you'll need: just four ingredients: flour, yeast, salt, and water. Oh, and a scale. For flour, I'm using all-purpose flour. So let's start with the water. 355 grams of lukewarm water. That's about a cup and a half if you're using cups and spoons measurements, but it's more accurate, of course, to use a digital scale. The water should be lukewarm, not too hot, or you'll kill the yeast. So keep it under 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius. Okay, once that's measured out, add 3 grams of dry active yeast. That's about 1 teaspoon. If you're not sure about your yeast, you can test it out by mixing it first in a small quantity of warm water and then watch to see if it foams up, or wait for this water to foam up. But I'm using a fresh batch of yeast and it's been good to me so far, so I'm not worried. But if you are, then wait a couple of minutes and watch and see some bubbling action. And if you do, you'll know that the yeast is alive. All right, next I add 450 grams of all purpose flour. That's 3 3/4 cups, depending really on how you scoop and pack the flour in. So, again, using a digital scale will give you much more consistent results. And these scales are so cheap, no reason not to use one. And last is the salt. I like to use between 9 and 10 grams of salt. The olives are also salty, but we like it, and you can adjust the salt to your taste. But I think 10 grams is perfect, not too salty. That's around 2 teaspoons of salt. Still, if you want to use less, that's fine. It won't change the texture, only the taste if you add a little more or a little less. All right, now that everything is measured, I mix this up just enough so that everything is incorporated and there are no dry patches. And then I cover it up with plastic wrap. You can also put it into a plastic bag. And now I'm going to leave this overnight to ferment. That took me a little more than 5 minutes because I was filming, but 5 minutes is really all it should take you. Okay, here we are the next day. It's around 12 hours later, and I actually mixed up two batches. We really like this bread, so I have two bowls going. Here you can see one of the bowls up close and personal. You can also see the bubbles on top and all around. Beautiful. I only have one Dutch oven at this point that I like to use. Yes, I need to get another one. So I work on one bowl of dough first, and then an hour later, I work on the other one. That way, when the first one comes out of the oven, I can right away put in the second one. Both come out yummy, as you'll soon see. The hour difference between them doesn't seem to matter. All right, now I'm going to stretch and fold the dough in this bowl, and the other bowl, I'll do that in an hour. The stretch and fold gives the dough some structure. Right now, the dough is a little sticky, so I dip my fingers in water, grab hold of one edge, stretch it up and over to the other side, turn the bowl a quarter turn, like 90 degrees, and then do the same, stretch up and fold over. Turn the bowl again and stretch it up and over. Sometimes I just pick the dough up and let it dangle down, and then I slap it down and fold it over. Not very elegant, but it works. As long as you're doing some sort of stretching and folding over, then you'll be fine. I do this 2 times around, so that's a total of 8 stretch and folds, turning the bowl 90 degrees each time. You can feel the dough changing under your fingers in structure as you do this. The dough feels less sticky and more elastic. So now I'm going to cover the bowl up again with plastic wrap and leave it for another 2 hours. It won't double in size this time, just more like about 1.5 times the size. Okay, it's 2.5 hours later, and you can see the dough is not double, but it has risen, and you can see bubbles throughout the dough. At this point, I sprinkle flour on my dough board and then scrape the dough onto that, and then dust some more flour on top. Now is the time to preheat the oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit with the Dutch oven inside because you want that pot screaming hot when you put the dough ball in. And now is also when I'm going to add the olives to the dough, shape it into a ball, and let it rest for another hour while the Dutch oven is heating up in the oven. I drained the olives and also dried them on a paper towel so they aren't too wet. Make sure you do that. You don't want to introduce overly wet olives into this. And then I worked them into the dough and then shaped the dough ball round and round until I got a nice ball shape. Well, pretty nice. I also work my hand around the dough ball to make sure all of the olives stay tight inside and the outside has a firm skin. Now I turn a glass bowl over it and wait an hour. Meanwhile, the Dutch oven is heating up and I'll start to work on the other dough ball. It's an hour later and this dough ball is ready to go into the Dutch oven. And my other dough ball is an hour behind it. It's going to get the same olive treatment. I crunch up some parchment paper so it doesn't roll up on me, and onto the paper goes my dough ball, and then into the Dutch oven. That's going in with the cover for 30 minutes, and then the cover off for another 30 minutes. Here I have my other dough ball, also with olives incorporated in it. That's the other half of the cup. But this one, I used a lame and made some decorative cuts so when the bread expands, it will have a place to expand. This creates a different, some would say more artisanal looking loaf. Here's the first dough ball. It's been in the oven covered for 30 minutes, and now I'm going to have it uncovered for another 30 minutes. And now it's done. You can see how beautiful it looks. And wait, you'll see this one. It's an hour behind and ready to go in now. Again, 450 degrees for 30 minutes with the cover on. And look at that. Beautiful, but only half done. And now 30 minutes with the cover off. And would you look at that? That's beautiful. You will want to cut into it right away, but don't. Wait till it cools down and all the steam has dissipated. Otherwise, you might get a gummy interior, maybe, but who wants to take a chance? And now the loaf is cool, and let's have a look. Wow, this tasted as good as it looks. I'm going to experiment with sun-dried tomatoes and basil, maybe some garlic for a margarita type of loaf. What do you think? If you have any suggestions, I'd appreciate it. Until the next loaf, thanks for watching. Bye.